From the gridiron to the diamond, this is more than X's and O's. This is your best Florida sports podcast with CBS 12 News Sports Director John Evenson, producer extraordinaire Sam Sullivan, and Max Shepman with the lighter side of sports.
Welcome to episode 16.
You're still counting.
Of the best Florida sports podcast. A little bit of a different look this time. Went back to the old school, the two of us. But to my right, we have our sound guy, our camera guy, and our co-host, Max Shepman.
He does it all. And I just want to say I'm a little concerned. We have not, you got these fantastic, Santa, I should say, got us these fantastic best Florida sports podcast shirts, and we have not gotten it right yet.
We haven't.
We are never in sync. Max and I assume that when you put these lovely pink versions,
we are 0 for 3 on shirt coordination.
You put this on our desk before the holidays. I figured, well, this is what we'll wear on our next one. And then you show up with the old gray one there, so we don't match.
So
what's going on now?
We're taping this on Monday, so I had an early shift Monday here at CBS 12 News. Woke up very early, lights were off. I saw the logo and said,
sounds like a millennial
all
excuse.
Right, this is the one. Well, I'm a Gen Z guy, as a matter of fact.
So you're saying you're colorblind?
Sure.
Okay, we'll go with that.
You know who's not colorblind?
Who's that?
Tyler Huntley.
He's not? How do you know this?
Because he was dealing. He was wheeling and dealing yesterday.
That was not planned, folks. That was not the Dolphins, the Miami Dolphins.
Oh, man.
Do you have the music?
I do not have the music set up.
Oh,
We are listen.
What? He doesn't have the music.
Just pretend it's playing right now.
Miami
Listen,
has
I
the
just want
Dolphins, the greatest football team.
Listen, I just want the record to show that this is a whole new setup here. So I have about 3 computers in front of me.
Yes.
I'm trying to run this board.
That's
Evanson,
all right.
this is a whole new. This is like me stepping in for Tua.
Right.
This is like a brand new system for me.
Right.
Yeah,
Mike McDaniel still calling these crazy motions. So I'm still working on this.
Yeah.
He's still like the week 4 Tyler Huntley as opposed
Against
to
the
week
Titans.
17.
Against the Titans.
Yes.
I'm Tyler Huntley against the Titans. Right?
Yeah.
No, he's better than that. But
Yeah.
man, oh man, speaking of Tyler Huntley, let's just get this out of the way first. The Dolphins, their playoff hopes were completely sunk. Like, no one expected them to have any opportunity.
Yeah.
I think even coming into this week, it was like an 8% chance.
Low.
Or something like that. And I don't know, the percentage is like in the 60s or 70s. I don't know what it is now, but it's a simple equation.
Yep.
All they have to do now that they've beat the Browns with Tyler Snoop Huntley at the helm is beat the Jets in Week 18. I mean, that sounds easy. Beat the Jets.
It's doable.
Your family. I apologize.
Doable.
And the Chiefs need to beat the Broncos. That's another question, whether they'll play their starters. But 2 more things need to happen, and one of them is the only one in question, in my opinion. I think the Dolphins are going to beat the Jets. What do you think, Max?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, we'll dive more into this, but the Jets are an absolute joke right now. You got players calling each other out over effort. Aaron Rodgers is ready to go back to Egypt or wherever the hell he goes for his vacations.
Yeah.
I do agree that if you're a Dolphins fan, the only one you really should be worried about, obviously, is option number 2, is the Chiefs-Broncos. Because Pat Mahomes ain't going to be playing. They're pretty much going to be resting their entire starting
Andy Reid
half.
has not revealed yet, as of Monday, if the Chiefs will play. If the starters will play Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, all the big the stars. History will tell you they probably won't. You're right there. But there's been no official word yet on whether or not they will play Patrick Mahomes, at least even for part of the game.
I just don't see them in a meaningless game. It doesn't really matter. Pat Mahomes could use the time off. He's been dealing with an ankle pretty much the entire season, I feel like. I think they have enough savvy veterans to know, like, okay, like, we know what it takes to get there. We've won it before. So I think the experience of how to handle the off time for those guys isn't really even a question. So
is 3 weeks off too much, though, because there's also a bye week here
that they would get.
So, obviously 2 weeks off, but when you add it all together, that'll be 3 weeks between taking to the field, right? So that's a lot of rust that could build up there when you factor in the bye week as well.
Even longer because they played on Christmas Day.
Right.
So they're going to have even more than
Right.
3 weeks. So yeah,
That might be in his thinking too, Andy.
yeah,
Reid.
whether or not they play, it could be possible they play a drive or they play a quarter, but I don't know.
I don't know.
As-
When you look at it, does a drive really even do anything?
Yeah.
It's true.
You're out there for what? I don't know.
Ask Cam Ward of the Miami Hurricanes
Oh,
if playing
right, there
just
you
one
go.
half really
And they lose
means
by
anything.
1. Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go.
Had to bring it up. I
Did.
apologize. And I will say, poor Jim Grimes, our news anchor connoisseur. What are you? You're the producer
Extraordinaire
is the word I'm
He's
looking
the
for.
anchor connoisseur.
Yeah. Anyway, so again, he had Josh Allen against me in the championship of our fantasy league final, and Josh Allen was pulled for the fourth quarter. So it didn't do much for him there either.
Yeah.
So you're saying if Patrick Mahomes plays part of the game, still advantage Dolphins.
Yes, I agree. But the big question with the Miami Dolphins is, will we see Tua for this must-win game? And that's the big question. I mean, dealing with
I'm really worried about
a
this.
hip injury, and it's the same hip injury that he got in college back in 2019. He dislocated his right hip. It actually ended his college career. He had to go, he underwent season-ending surgery, comes back. It's been 5 years. He gets hurt against the Texans. Same hip, just a different spot.
So you're right and you're wrong in the way you worded that initially, in my opinion, because head coach Mike McDaniel
Had a press conference this afternoon.
Yeah, he's been saying, and he's been saying since the end of the game that, okay, first of all, no surgery is required, but he has insisted. He asked this question last week to the doctors. He asked, is this the same injury that he dealt with in college? And the answer that Mike McDaniel gives the media and everything, because this is very concerning if it is no, they are unrelated injuries. But Sam and Max, if it's the same darn hip,
Right.
how can I be convinced here that it's an unrelated injury because it's the same hip, and it stands to reason that he has a problem with this hip. So that's the concern I have. You can tell me it's an unrelated injury all you want, but I'm still a little skeptical that this isn't a major problem, or it could turn into one, considering McDaniel said also that there was no option for Tua to play. Doctors were saying serious injury could come out of a game that he played in, considering where he was at with his hip. Max, thoughts?
Well, you know, I think like one thing that was concerning, and I definitely just hit the wrong button, so we went to black there for a half second. That's on my bad.
People applauded when they didn't have to see Sam and I for a couple
This is
seconds.
an audio podcast as well.
Amen. So I think one of the things that is concerning to me is, so not only does Tua have the concussions to deal with, we're talking about all this, now his hip is coming back into question. I think one thing that also stood out to me for Mike McDaniel's press conference is that he said, quote, Tua's firmly in the unknown. Can someone tell me what that means? Is the injury in the unknown? Like, is his playing status in the unknown? Because I feel like if it was as simple as like maybe like a hip flexor or something like that, no big deal. Like, okay, whatever. But I feel like that since they're being so secretive, I feel like this goes a little bit past gamesmanship of like, yo, we're not going to let anybody know if Tua plays. Because, like, obviously the playoffs are on the line. If Tua's going to be out there, just say he's going to be out there.
Yeah.
So
it might be even more scary than being secretive, because the way Mike McDaniel explained this was that because when was it, on Saturday when we found out that he wasn't going to play, it was kind of shocking.
that was kind of out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere,
that they
like
were
all the media members were like, "What?" And you would think a bunch of beat writers and everything, and TV sports guys like myself would have been even like a little bit on the radar. But Tua Tagovailoa and others had said all week that it was no big deal. We knew that there was something going on there, but that it wasn't going to be a problem. But the way McDaniel explained it on Monday is that as the week progressed, it was not doing what it had done before as far as evolving in a good direction throughout the week. So if that's the trend now, where it's not doing what you need it to do, then we've got a different prognosis here that this hip is not getting any better anytime soon. And since we have a game in 6 days from when we talk to you right now, that's not a good thing.
No, it's not. And the only positive to really look out of this is Tyler Huntley having the game that he had. It's only one. We saw, kind of the mini dumpster fire he had early on in the season replacing Tua, but comes off of a big game like this, you have something to look forward to.
Fans aren't freaking out as much as they might be at this point.
Especially facing the Jets who, we'll talk about that later, got blown out against the Bills. So there's really a lot for this Dolphins team to work out from now until Sunday.
Yeah, Snoop, oh man, Snoop looked like he was playing. So earlier when they would put Snoop in, they would plug him in. He'd only been here for a couple weeks, and it was almost like they were trying to fit that Tua Lego piece or the Tua circle into the square hole there, but the circle being Snoop. Yeah. But Snoop has figured this offense out, and they're running a very similar offense, and he was looking great with the short, quick passes. He was even more mobile than Tua is by far. He led the team in rushing, 52 yards, scored a rushing touchdown. I love the moves he made there, into the corner pocket. And
very Lamar-esque.
Yeah.
His backup at one point, that's what it looked like. And he was just as efficient as Tua has been. And, if not even a little bit better in this game, 22 for 26, 225 and a passing touchdown. I mean, that's what you need if you want your playoff hopes to stay alive, is that sharp of a performance, regardless who is against, because you need to build momentum if you're going to go into the postseason.
Max, you got your finger ready to press on some sound here? We got to hear what Tyler Huntley said himself about starting in Week 17, beating the Browns, and I think Calais Campbell also chimes in towards the end.
Got to be prepared, never know when you're going to get called on, and I'm telling you, Tua did a good job of he took his reps, and then he was just talking me through my reps, When it was time to make a play, we had to make a play, and, the times that the plays were there, we just took them, and we just got to get better, clean up our fundamentals, the flags and the stoppers of our drives. We could have put up way more points. We just got to hone in on those and get ready for this week coming up.
I feel like it was poetic, when Tyler Huntley getting to come back here after being in camp here and, playing the way well as he played. Early in the season, he came in off the street and came in and played well, put us in some ball games, won for us. But then now, after having weeks in the system, and really getting the feel familiar with how coach calls things and understanding, he was a good quarterback after the day. He was elite, and that was fun to see.
Tyler Huntley looked a lot more comfortable in the offense.
Yes.
We touched upon that.
Yeah.
And I believe in the post-game presser, somebody asked him, hey, how comfortable are you with this offense? And he made a joke like, hey, I know what the motions in the offense are now. So I think with him having more and more time behind this offense, more and more time to get the reps that he needs, I think we can finally start to see hey, maybe Snoop could be a very competent backup in case Tua goes down again.
Further proving that, Chris Greer and the way he constructed this team, they were kind of caught with their pants down when Tua predictably went down with an injury.
Right.
And they didn't have a backup quarterback that was worth his salt because Skyler was not the guy.
No.
They had to scramble. It took one game for them to realize from Skyler to scramble and grab Snoop.
One game, more like that one drive against the Patriots, and they're like, nah, we can't go back to that.
Yeah, so they grab Snoop, and okay, now finally, we're right in the thick of it, and you've got a better option for a backup quarterback, but he doesn't know the playbook yet. It's gotten to the point now where even before this game, the Dolphins, the reports have come out that the Dolphins are interested in re-signing Tyler Snoop Huntley for next season. So if they would have just had him to begin with, maybe we'd be talking about already talking playoffs here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think, to kind of piggyback off of that, what he's done for this offense, being able to build, learn the offense more, understand it better, and have a performance like this. On the flip side, this is probably one of the few if not the only complete game we've seen from the Miami Dolphins. The defense was lights out, only allowing 3 points, having an interception,
Anthony
a fumble
Weaver
recovery.
He is a genius.
I mean, if you want to talk about players and coaches, he's probably been one of the greatest, if not the greatest addition to this Dolphins team.
No touchdowns.
Especially losing all the defensive pieces that we lost.
Yeah.
Van Ginkel, Christian Wilkins, and he's putting up performances like this. I mean, it's a testament.
And then he'll be a head coach next year. And
we'll lose him. And all right, see you later.
Yeah.
But I do just want to kind of throw a little wrench in that.
Okay.
You know, as great as the Dolphins defense looked, let's not get too excited because
it was the Browns.
They were facing the Browns offense.
Yeah, so they didn't let, as I was saying, they didn't let the Browns in the end zone. But good luck if they make the playoffs with the Bills in Orchard Park.
Right, because you know, Dorian Thompson-Robinson is not the starting quarterback of the Bills. You know, Nick Chubb out of this game.
Yep.
So
Jerome Ford gets hurt.
Jerome Ford, ankle injury, I think. So I want to, as good as the Dolphins defense has been playing, let's also remember the fact of who they're playing up against.
Yes.
You look like the Grinch right now, saying all this stuff. Yeah.
Even though that doesn't want the Grinch
Yeah, I don't
doesn't
think
do
he makes
but-
that noise.
That was more like my Chihuahua.
So the defense, obviously, of course, as you mentioned, takes advantage of a team that's, you know, that offense has so many question marks.
Just be
so many
honest. Just
issues.
be honest, Sam. They're trash.
They
be
are.
honest, Sam.
They
trash.
are. They
the
are
Browns
always
level,
honest.
a top 5 pick in next year's
The
draft.
Browns are going to
Browns
brown.
They're at their Ring doorbell.
Yeah, that's where they are.
Yeah.
But then on the flip side, the Dolphins' run game has not been able to get it going. The front seven
Disappeared completely from the face of the earth. The run
the
game
front
has.
seven for the Browns, especially, you know, that defensive line is great, yes, but you should still be able to take advantage of that defense as a whole. And Devon Achane only 25 rushing yards. I mean,
He literally wasn't playing late in this game. They gave up on the guy.
Yeah.
He was on my fantasy team as well against Jim. Luckily, he didn't sink me.
nice 5 points.
Well,
As great as Devon Achane has been, I mean, the running game has been nowhere to be found.
Correct.
Somebody has to make up their mind on what the hell's going on because you know, you see Achane in there, he's not producing. Then they're throwing Jeff Wilson Jr. out there for whatever godforsaken reason.
Nice face.
Mostert's not really doing anything.
Right.
So there's a difference between when you have a nice 1-2 punch.
Yes.
You know, give Achane a spell here and there, but I mean, Jesus Christ, we're Jeff Wilson out there
Now we're swearing.
Now
on
we're
this
bringing
podcast? What's going on?
It's the holiday season.
I think we need to put Jesus
beat
Christ at running back.
Honestly, they might need to because they need a lot of help in that
They
department.
do. It's been very surprising. and
That went
confusing.
somewhere I never thought it would go.
Especially with the offensive line.
Yeah,
I mean, what they've been able to do all season, despite injury to Teron Armstead, they've been able to perform and keep it consistent.
Yeah.
But the run cannot figure it out.
Without Teron Armstead in there, though, I will say, and partly, I mean, the offensive line's partly to obviously a big part of the run game. There are some major flaws that we did not see earlier in the year going on. The offensive line needs to be restructured a bit here for sure. But what else is new in Dolphin land?
Yeah, there you go.
All right, well, let's go to one of my favorite guys, Alan Poupard. He's an Expos fan. I too grew up.
That's right, the Canadian connection.
Yeah, I used to go to Expos fans when I was a young lad. But
Young warthog.
I think Alan's lived in South Florida longer than he ever lived in Montreal at this point. He's covered the Dolphins for years, Miami Dolphins on SI. Here is Alan Poupard with some hot takes. We are joined now by Alan Poupard of Miami Dolphins on SI. That's the website. All Dolphins Podcast, if I'm not mistaken, is where we can listen to you almost every day, right?
About every day during the season, I should say.
Make it a daily habit. And today we were listening to Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel, the Dolphins who are unbelievably still in playoff contention heading into week 18. We will get into that. But first of all, they won without Tua Tagovailoa against the Browns. And very concerning when you hear hip, but Mike McDaniel insists it's unrelated to the college hip injury. Was there anything that you took out of his press conference today? Because he was grilled about this Tua injury.
Yeah, no, and all the questions are valid. He acknowledges all the questions are valid. You hear hip injury with Tua, and you remember what happened to him at Alabama, and it's like, because we're not talking strictly about the end of the 2024 season. You're talking about big picture. What could that mean for his career? And let's understand that Mike McDaniel wants to be as forthcoming as possible. But the nature of things for a football head coach, when you're talking about injuries, particularly when there's nothing definitive, and certain coaches are different than others, tend to play close to the vest. So I want to believe that Mike McDaniel is being as honest as he can be while not revealing everything there is to reveal, I should say. I'm sorry. So, but like you said, yes, he said it's not related to the injury at Alabama. He said after the game on Sunday, surgery is currently not on the table. Hasn't ruled him out for the game against the Jets on Sunday, and basically they're going to see how the week plays out.
Yeah, it's so hard for you and I and the media because none of us are doctors. So, but it does seem a little concerning. Are you concerned that, I mean, how could it be unrelated when it's the hip? I mean, that's directly related. He had hip problems in college.
Yeah, and then I think it was Tracy Wolfson, the CBS sideline reporter, who made it a point to tweet out that she was told, I think it was by Tua or by the Dolphins, that it was the same hip, but in a different location in the hip. I'm not a doctor like you, but I think the hip's that big that even if it's not exactly in the same spot as the hip, it's still concerning. So, yeah. And especially, I mean, because chances are it's entirely possible that Tua's not going to be in the lineup again against the Jets on Sunday. Then what happens if the Dolphins do miraculously sneak into the playoffs? Would he play in the playoff game at Buffalo? I don't know.
The last time they were playing in a playoff game in Buffalo, as we all remember, it was Skylar Thompson at the helm. So let's hope that is not repeated. But at least Dolphin fans can be a little bit more comfortable now than what they saw from Tyler Snoop Huntley in those games when Tua had a concussion, because he looked like he had been really paying attention in practice. And he even said Tua's given him some help along the way.
Yeah. And here's the thing. It was against the Cleveland Browns, who are a bad team, who had a very good defense last year when they made the playoffs. This year, their defense still has some good players on it when it's intact. They've had injuries, but it's dragged down by an offense that's basically Division 1A level. I mean, it's a really bad offense right now. So let's put that into context to when we look at Tyler Huntley's performance. So, however, this to me is like what it's supposed to look like. I've made the point before on my podcast and all that, and I get all kind of shots fired my way when I talk about the offense being conducive to quarterbacks having success because the guys get open, it's spread out and all that. What we saw yesterday is that's what I envisioned all along, like it's supposed to look. It doesn't operate the same. It doesn't look quite the same as when Tua's in the lineup, but it shouldn't like completely cliff dive the way it did earlier this season when Tua was on IR with a concussion. Now, obviously, this may have been the best passing game of Tyler Huntley's career. Can he do it again? And can he do it on a consistent basis is going to be the next question. But for at least this one game, that's the way it's supposed to look like. And this is where, when I've said before that there should not be this drastic of a drop-off when Tua's not in the lineup, that's what we saw yesterday.
So what you're saying, if I'm getting you right, is when people are suggesting that McDaniel is preparing two different offensive plans depending on who is in there, that might not and should not be as much of the case as we head towards the Jets game. It should be pretty much the same for both QBs.
But you saw, yeah, because what you saw yesterday, we saw a lot of the same passes that Tua throws. The ones that Tyreek Hill basically at the numbers, 15 yards on the field, that was Tua's bread and butter for the past 2 years. I mean, he made a killing off of those. This year, not so much. Just, pardon me. This year, it's been mostly like a ton of screen passes. There were one or two of those by Huntley against the Browns. But there was a lot of the same plays that we saw Tua having so much success. And the other dimension that Huntley brings is the dude can move and led the team in rushing with, 52 yards?
Well, yeah, you led right into my next question. He led the team in rushing, and you're right, 52 yards, which begs the question, what on earth has happened to the run game here in these, I guess, the last 6 games? I mean, I guess the offensive line has been, a bright spot in some ways, but I mean, this is really showing that there needs to be some restructuring here, I would have to believe.
Yeah, probably, but it's not strictly the offensive line. I think that's too easy to do that. I think defenses are kind of hip to what the Dolphins like to do with their running game. That's one issue. Another issue there, there's some blocks being missed up front, guys getting beaten. And another part is we're seeing a lot of running backs from the Dolphins breaking tackles or making guys miss. No. And then against San Francisco, the Dolphins had a degree of success even before Achane busted the long one at the end of the game. And then yesterday it starts off 9 yards, 1 yard bad, but 6 yards on his first 3 attempts. So it was 3 for 16. And then the running backs after that combined for 16 carries for 17 yards. Yeesh, that's not good.
No, yeah. And so do you think who would be, let's just go right to another subject. Who would your MVP be? I know we've got one more week left, but I think it's pretty, we've seen it all. Who would your Dolphins MVP be for 2024?
I think I'd have to go with Zach Sealer. He's the guy who has been, and it's funny I say that after a game where he did very little, even though the Dolphins held Cleveland to 3 points. Then again, I can't stress enough just how bad that offense is. But I think week in and week out against good teams, against bad teams, he's always shown up, made plays, been a difference maker. And if you look, the signature win of the year for the Dolphins, not that they've had a ton because they're the Dolphins and that's who they are right now, was the Monday night game at the Rams. This was a game where Sealer comes back after missing 2 games with a freakish eye injury. Very first place, a screen pass, and Sealer's on the backfield, drops the guy for a 5-yard loss. And then there have been other plays throughout the season. Had that huge sack against the Jets at the end of the game when the Jets were in a position to kick a game-winning field goal. I think he's consistently been the best offensive players. You can make a case for Calais Campbell's been great, but again, his number of snaps is a bit limited, which is forgivable considering, as Mike McDaniel jokes, he's 47 years old. No, he's not, but he's 38, which is very old by NFL standards. He's been really, really good offensively. You can make a case for Jonnu Smith. You could make a case for Devon Achane, considering the offense has focused so much on him, except the rushing numbers really aren't there. So just the fact that he's the guy who gets the ball all the time, does that really make him the MVP? So anyway, long-winded answer, Zach Sealer.
Yeah, there's no one like Zach Sealer who really seems to care as much as him, who just wants to go out there and make sure that he gives it his all for this team, win or lose. One last one for you. You would think if they go 7-2 down the stretch, Mike McDaniel is safe. He got the game ball, I think it was last week, from the owner himself. But where do you think we're at with Chris Grier, with all the mistakes he made structuring this team? Do you think we see him back next season?
I do. I would be very surprised. I think I put my percentage of there being a GM change at like 30% or something like that. And when you say he made mistakes in structuring this team, again, think back to the issue with Calais Campbell at the NFL trade deadline and how it came out later that the Dolphins were ready to trade him. Mike McDaniel came in and, no, you're not trading him. We want to make a run. I need him on my team, which tells you basically Mike McDaniel has juice when it comes to personnel. He signed a contract extension with 2 years left. Does anybody believe that didn't come with some sort of increased personnel power if it wasn't already there? So I think some of those bad personnel decisions may be not improving the guard position. And yes, we're more concerned about it than you are, Chris Grier. That the failure, the egregious failure not to plan better for the backup quarterback position. And it's not, if we ask, it's going to be, we're going to get an answer of like, it's a group decision and all that. I'm of the belief that this was not strictly Chris Grier who said, no, we're good. Mike White, Skylar Thompson are going to be our backups. Again, they're going to compete and we'll get it done. I highly suspect that Mike McDaniel said, "You know what, bring me back those two guys. I'm going to make it work with whoever wins the job." And obviously it didn't work. Based on what we saw yesterday, they lucked out in being able to get Tyler Huntley, except they won 1-3 when Tua was out against a bad Tennessee team and against a Colts team that was basically begging you to steal the game. But anyway, again, long-winded answer, long answer, short answer, long. I guess I do believe Chris Greer will be back.
Yeah, I guess it's a runaway train. You can't throw anyone overboard at this point. We'll see what happens next year, and who knows? Maybe we'll have some fun or not in Buffalo. Thank you so much, Alan, and we enjoy listening to All Dolphins podcast as well as Miami Dolphins on SI. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, John. Happy New Year.
Go Expos.
So it was Go Expos for you two guys. For us, it's Go Dolphins, and it's Boo the Jets. I think that's one of the big questions this week. We saw it at the end of the Bills game. Is Aaron Rodgers going to get the start next week in a completely meaningless game for them?
I have an even better question. We'll start with Max Shepman. Who would you rather face if you were the Dolphins defense, Aaron Rodgers or Tyrod Taylor?
I think I'm going Aaron Rodgers, dude. He's just
let me give you the stat line. It wasn't
so bad.
It wasn't garbage time that Tyrod Taylor played, but Rodgers gets pulled. He went 12 for 18, 112 yards, 2 interceptions. Tyrod Taylor comes in 11 for 14, 83 yards, 2 touchdowns.
I think the great thing about that too is Aaron Rodgers specifically took himself out. I don't know if you saw the post game. He's like, we're down 33-0. So I was like, you know what? Let's give Tyrod Taylor.
He talked to interim head coach Jeff Ulbrich.
Out of the kindness of my heart, I allowed.
He's talking to Jeff Ulbrich. He's like, he's probably thinking about taking me out soon. And then they score that 69-yard touchdown, and he's like, all right, so you're taking me out.
Yeah.
But the big thing that's riding for Aaron Rodgers, he's still looking for his 500th career touchdown pass. And Devontae Adams has come out and said, I want to be the guy to catch that.
Okay,
he caught his 200th. He caught his 400th. He wants number 500.
If the Dolphins are up 48-0, who the hell cares?
Yeah.
Go ahead, A-Rod, get your 500th touchdown.
Wait, are you talking A-Rod or are you talking A-Rod?
A-Rod.
A-Rod. God.
Would you rather face, if you're the Dolphins defense, Alex Rodriguez?
Or
I'm
going to go
Tyrod Taylor. No, and that is the original question. And Tyrod Taylor has shown he's got game.
For sure.
He's got game.
He's mobile.
Veteran quarterback.
You know what I mean? So, starting the final game of the season in New York City, or officially New Jersey, in front of those home fans, he gets some fire brewing inside him to try to do something special. So I think you're right. Go with the guy who was proven to be not special in 2024, one Aaron Rodgers. That would be the guy I'd want to face. I'd be rooting if I was the Dolphins to face the old legend.
Yeah, it hasn't worked out with them. You'd rather than not try something new and something sparks. So
right, yeah. I think if you're a Dolphins fan, just deal with the Jets' consistency of being bad.
Yes.
Instead of having Tyrod come in again, he's mobile. He can make plays with his legs.
Yep.
I feel like with Tyrod, he'll be more influence to hit Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, those guys. So I think if I'm a Dolphins fan, give me Aaron.
You're giving me nightmares here. I'm just
Aaron.
I just came to the realization that it's so Dolphins. It would be so Dolphins.
I know.
You did predict this.
Yeah, I actually did.
Yes.
You're right that everything would go right, and it comes down to that final game. And my tongue-in-cheek prediction was that, and then they lose to the Jets. We can go back and check the tape. I did predict that, but how Dolphins would that be? Like the Chiefs pull out a win. They actually do play Mahomes and Kelsey. They've got it right there, and then the Jets win on the last second field goal. And Tyrod he gets his 500th, and Tyrod Taylor plays the second half, and they win it.
I think that if that happens, that segues into our next topic here, which is whether or not Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer are both safe.
Okay.
If that happens, no way. In my mind, they both got to go.
I think you're wrong, though. I don't agree with you.
Well, that's what I think should happen.
Yeah,
Whether or not it will happen,
I don't agree with
different.
what you think either, because I feel like
you're crutching on Tua's injury.
Listen, No, not at all. That was
Okay.
so that's all on Chris Greer. So
Got
if
it.
anybody's going to lose his job and they go a different direction, it's got to be Chris Greer.
Got it.
Mike McDaniel took a team that just had their souls ripped out. They were 2-6, basically out of it. And if he beats the Jets this weekend, they've gone 7-2 since then. He rallied. They believe in him, obviously. Not to mention the owner, Stephen Ross, literally threw him a game ball on video after I've lost track of who they played last week now. Who they played before?
San Francisco?
The 49ers game, threw him the ball.
Shout out Pat
and
O'Donnell.
said, game ball for our head coach, Mike McDaniel. You do not do that as an owner of a billionaire owner.
I don't know.
Unless you believe in your
We've
head
seen some
coach.
pretty cutthroat owners, i.e. Jerry Jones.
But
who-
Stephen Ross is not that guy. He's a fan.
I agree with that. I mean, I think as much crap as we've given Mike McDaniel about the offense and how complicated it is, you got to give him a lot of credit for keeping this team together because
Heck yeah.
it easily could have went off the rails. Dolphins easily
was
could
off
be
the rails.
fighting for the number 1 pick. Instead, they rally. Again, granted, they're playing teams like Cleveland and stuff like that, although, playing San Francisco last week was an impressive win.
Right.
So I think I'm on Evanson's side. I kind of disagree with you in the fact of, that you think they'll both be gone if they lose to the Jets. I just think that you got to give especially Mike McDaniel, credit. And then, obviously, I think you got to give Chris Greer this offseason to see what he wants to do with this team.
And the other argument is Chris Greer has just gone all in with these big contracts and everything. Tua and McDaniel to the extension.
Yeah. Hill.
How do you
Waddle.
change? How do you change course now? Greer's made it almost impossible. Who are you going to bring in to continue where Greer thought he was headed?
When you even look at the draft picks, drafting guys like Chop Robinson.
Yeah,
look how he's turned it on.
Sleeper pick definitely
Yeah.
worked out for sure.
So I think it'll just be some Dolphins misery if they lose to the Jets, but they're getting they're getting the brass back.
They'll
next year.
love that. They'll love
Yeah,
that.
actually, so Rick Horrow, who's friends with Stephen Ross, he joins me every week on TV for Inside the Billions.
Maybe he'll take the next GM job if it's open.
No, he won't. He's going to keep doing Inside the Billions. He prefers that as
Okay.
his.
He can't
as
do
his
both?
No, it takes up too much of his
Conflict,
time.
got it.
Yeah, he doesn't want to do that. He prefers talking with me every week. But
Okay.
here's our conversation this week about some of these same topics. Welcome to the last Inside the Billions of the calendar year. We are with the sports professor, Rick Horrow, who I'm taking it, you're not going to end the year at home. You're on vacation somewhere, aren't you?
I'm working, man. If the IRS is asking about this, I am hard at work today in Key West, Florida, and don't you forget it. But, I came here from flying over Palm Beach County at the Commanders game. That was wild. That was an incredible game. Boy, Jeff Lurie, my friend, the owner of the Eagles, he always says monetizing hope. The NFL is better at that than anybody else. Look at last weekend. Who'd have thought the Giants would have put up all those points against the Colts and paved the way for these magnificent 2-6 comeback Dolphins who are, look, they're one win away from the playoffs. It is unbelievable.
Your theory and your friend's theory, you've been telling us all year, and by gosh, here we are heading into week 18. Everyone's excited. The Dolphins seemingly, and I say seemingly, should beat the Jets. We've seen some disappointments before, but what about the Chiefs? From their business perspective, Coach Andy Reid, they've already clinched home field advantage throughout the AFC playoffs, but they're taking on a Broncos team who needs to win. So there's playoff implications here. Andy Reid is old school. Do they play Patrick Mahomes? What's going to happen here?
I think he's old school enough to play him for a while. He won't pull a Cam Ward. I think it'll be one of those deals where you're going to play and you're going to let him play and you're going to see the situation dictates it. But the other piece of this, which is important, is that the Chiefs and the Broncos, for that matter, everybody in the AFC West, they don't like each other. And so if you have an opportunity to blow a team out after they look like a shoo-in, you're probably going to want to do that. You rest Mahomes? Well, yeah, but because he's earned the bye, he gets the rest the next week anyway. So, I'm not sure the rest versus rust thing, that is relevant for 1 week. But if it's 2 weeks in a row, it may lead toward rust. Andy, play them. Play them, Andy.
They sign Tua Tagovailoa to this big contract, and now he's missed 5 games. The Dolphins would easily be in the playoffs, I would have to say, if Tua had been healthy. Are there some regrets there, do you think, or is that just, again, the cost of doing business?
Look, it's a cost of doing business, and everybody understands that. Some players are more injury-prone than others in certain circumstances, so it's not just the prone concussion issue. It's the hip, the Alabama hip, that was the issue originally. So players are medically evaluated all the time, and owners cross all of their fingers when they sign. There are injury policies that indemnify and protect an owner when something happens.
Mike McDaniel is 6-2 with this team since they were 2-6. They could end the season on a 7-2 run, so that bodes well for his job security. What about Chris Greer?
Well, yeah, everybody jams the general managers because they don't do a good job, and you know, Mr. Ross, Steve has pulled the trigger on letting some general managers go pretty quickly. Tannenbaum, for example, and so there is no job security at that level. Have you constantly retooled the offensive line and not gotten it to the point where it's a great line? Yeah, but there are a lot of teams that are in that boat as well. Yeah, maybe you didn't prepare with the adequate backup. So there are a lot of questions about this team. Those questions will get magnified tremendously if they don't beat the Jets. That's why the buyout and the guaranteed contracts for the coaches and the executives is even more important, because you know, if they're fired at a whim, at least they get some money.
Thank you once again, sports professor. Can't wait for more analysis in 2025. Yeah, happy New Year to everyone out there. Some people could be listening to this in 2024. Some could be in the future and listening to it in 2025. But all the best along the way. And speaking of that, let's look back at 2024. The Dolphins MVP of the season. Now, they gave the media a chance to vote for the Dan Marino Team MVP award. And that's something.
He was a pretty good player, right, Dan Marino?
I believe, if I remember correctly, he was a pretty good place kicker.
Okay,
I think, yeah,
right.
And he was very successful in that position
regard.
for years and years.
Nice.
So for anyone,
have you ever seen Jason Sanders and Dan Marino in the same room? I haven't.
Oh yeah,
that's a good point.
He whispers all these things into his ear all the time. But you think they're the same person, Max? Is that what you're trying to get at?
You never know.
Benjamin Button.
Yep.
Never know.
The ageless wonder.
So team MVP. So you got selected to make a vote. Who did you pick?
Well, I was about to. Should I reveal who I picked? I guess I will. I wanted to vote for 3
exclusive.
people. Yeah, I wanted to vote for Zach Sealer.
Okay.
Because he is a guy who is like a lunch pail hard worker. He was almost out of the league at one point.
Yep.
Got released. He's little by little, he's just kept chopping wood, and he got the Defensive Player of the Week. At one point this year, and he's just been such an impact player. I thought about voting for Devon Achane just because, for a while there, where would the offense have been without that weapon?
Yeah.
With Tyreek Hill and Waddle were radio silent for so long, but I decided on Jonnu Smith.
Yeah.
Because against the Browns, he tied the Dolphins' franchise record for most touchdowns in a season by a tight end. The Dolphins haven't had a tight end like him in decades.
Yeah.
And his career himself, he just wasn't producing the way he probably thought he was going to. And he came to a team where he thought he would change his career around. And Jonnu Smith, that other offensive weapon, where would we be without him? Those short passes when they changed up the offense. And I'll never forget the moment when he threw the touchdown ball randomly into the stands, and it landed in his son's arms. I think, he's been a really special player this year. Yeah,
and I have to fully agree with you. That is certainly my pick for team MVP. He's been. We talked about it in prior episodes. I think he drank out of the fountain of youth. Just completely resurrected his career. Was so huge for the backups that came in. Just that safety valve, being able to just open up the offense, keep them moving down the field. I mean, he's been huge for this team.
And it's incredible. We haven't even brought up 38-year-old Calais Campbell. So when you really talk about it, this team is really deep in MVP caliber guys. Things just haven't always gone the Dolphins' way. What do you think, Max? Who's your MVP?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned him. I got to go Calais Campbell here.
There you go.
I mean, as great as John, who's been all this year, I think Calais has really been the glue of this team,
Yes.
especially on the defensive side. We talked about how Baltimore tried to make a run for him at a trade, and Mike McDaniel was like, nah, dude, we can't lose this guy's leadership.
Yep.
And it's been proven that was a great decision by them to keep Calais Campbell. I mean, you just look what he – Evanson's almost dying over here on his LaCroix, so apologize.
He's choking up thinking about Calais Campbell.
I was holding that cough-in for the past 35 minutes. It finally came out.
Interesting.
But yeah, you just see what he's doing this year. I just gotta go Calais Campbell.
Yeah.
I'm glad we covered all four of those guys because, and the fact that he chose Calais Campbell, we all so many different, we chose the same guy ultimately, but there's
so many options.
So many selections out there. You know what? I feel like playing a game. It's the holiday season. A lot of families, get the board games out and blow the dust off and play some board games. And Max always has fun games for us. I wonder if you might have one today that you've developed.
I do. It's not necessarily a game, but a trip down memory lane, right?
Okay.
This deals with Aaron Rodgers. We all know he got traded to the Jets from the Packers. So it really hasn't worked out. So I got curious, what are some of the worst trades in NFL history?
Oh, man.
I did some Googling.
Oh, okay.
There was a list of top 10, but we'll go top 3.
Okay.
This is according to Sports Illustrated.
Okay.
Okay, ready?
I'm ready.
The third worst trade in NFL history. The Broncos trading for Russell Wilson.
Yes.
Russell plays 2 years. They owe him a boatload of money. I think he's getting paid $39 million from the Broncos to not play.
Yeah.
The Seahawks get Drew Lock, Noah Fant, Shelby Harris, and 5 picks in return for Russell Wilson.
And Russell, I mean, first of all, he's such a great guy. Have you met Russell Wilson before? He's a
Oh, no. Sorry, you were talking to me? No.
He's a
I definitely
fantastic
haven't.
fellow. Yeah, it's a podcast. We're talking to each other.
Sorry, I thought you were
That's the
talking to
whole
Sam, not me. My bad.
concept here.
That was a
But,
bad trade of ideas off each other, though.
And then you see, what now they've got their guy, right?
it's been ever since since the Broncos lost Peyton Manning. They've been able to figure it out at quarterback, and finally they take the chance. They draft the rookie he had a ton of college experience. Finally works out, but that will go down as one of the worst trades.
And ironically, they're the one team who could ruin everything for the Miami Dolphins in Week 18. Max, what's the second worst NFL trade of all time?
The second worst, current one, the Browns trading for Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
Texans get first-round pick in 2022.
Yep.
In 23, they get a first, third, fourth, and a fifth. Then they obviously pay him that $200 million guaranteed contract. Not ideal.
No. And those picks have turned out to be great. I can't think of who exactly those Texans picks turned out to be, but I know that those are big players on that team because they're such a young offense and defense. Yeah, that did not work out at all.
That's like the biggest topic, I think, on they were saying in the broadcast on sports radio in Cleveland is just how to what do they do?
How do you get rid of that, dude?
Yeah.
Do you try it again? Do you draft somebody? I mean, who knows? You saw some traction with Jameis Winston, but then he, with every touchdown, comes in interception. So it's
and Dorian Thompson Robinson is clearly your franchise quarterback.
The guys that the Texans were able to draft, Will Anderson, Tank Dell, those 2 guys alone worth it.
Yeah, exactly. So huge,
All right,
household
let's follow up with number 1 here, shall we?
Yes.
The worst NFL trade, according to Sports Illustrated. Evanson, you're old, so you'll probably remember this.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The Vikings trading for Herschel Walker back in the day. The Cowboys got 8 picks
Oh, my God.
for Herschel Walker. He played 2.5 seasons for the Vikings, never rushed for over 850 yards. And ironically, with the Cowboys, with one of those picks, drafted Emmitt Smith.
Oh my gosh.
See, that's even that's the extra stinger in there, right? Like you can't control what the draft.
You're getting what
they turned out to be. It's like, we could have gotten them, but it's
didn't Herschel Walker dabble in the politics too? Recently?
Yeah, he was like trying to. Was it like governor of Georgia or some sort of like government seat in Georgia, and everybody's. No, we ain't doing that.
We're good.
Yeah, we're good.
So let me get this straight. That was, in your opinion, the top 3?
No. That was according to Sports Illustrated.
Oh, gotcha.
And in what? That's of all time.
All time.
Wow.
All time. The fourth one, because I know we're running out of time here. The fourth one was the Saints trading everything in their mother to the Washington.
Yes.
To get Ricky Williams.
Yes, that turned into nothing.
Right,
Yep.
and then the fifth one was obviously the 49ers trade for Trey Lance.
Right. All right.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
I still loved it when the Bills somehow made a CFL trade for Doug Flutie and brought him in.
Oh, boy.
You said I'm old. That was,
you are old.
We would not have had Flutie Flakes.
We wouldn't.
We wouldn't have.
Dougie Fresh.
It was the greatest cereal of all time.
Yeah.
All right.
Greatest cereal.
Predictions.
Oh, we still have
Jets.
to do those?
Dolphins.
Wait,
To wrap it up.
That's right. There's a game.
That's right. There is a game. So the last
A
time
game
they played,
above the game.
the last time they played, the Dolphins beat the Jets 32-26. I'll kick it off. I think it's going to be something very similar, one-score game. I'm going to go 30-23 Dolphins.
Yeah, man.
Rodgers gets 500.
Yeah, you're looking. I think the Jets are going to put a scare into the Dolphins. We don't know who the quarterback's going to be quite yet. I agree with that close call situation there. The Dolphins are certainly going to win this game, but I think the spread's going to be a little more than that. So maybe let's say like 34-20 or something like that.
So
I think there's going to be some offense in this game.
All right.
There's going to be some offense.
Max.
The Jets are bad. I know I've said that. They're bad. Aaron Rodgers
Newsflash. Breaking
sucks.
news.
I even think with Tyler Huntley, it's almost a blowout, dude. I just don't trust the Jets' offense, and I don't really see how anybody can.
Yeah.
So I think Dolphins win. I think it's gonna be. I'm gonna go 28-10 Dolphins.
Whoa.
Rodgers does get his 500th. Congratulations on a boring record.
Boring record.
Yeah, so I'm going to go 28-10 Dolphins. And to cap that off, I don't think the Dolphins make the playoffs because I think Denver pulls it out in Kansas City.
Wow.
And thank goodness Aaron Rodgers already broke the record for the most sacks. He's been sacked more than any quarterbacks ever in the history of the NFL. I think I have that right. Do you have time to look that up?
You're probably right. I mean, 41 years old. It's bound to happen.
That happened in the Buffalo game, I think. So,
Great.
Yeah, he's starting to break records left, right, and center that really don't mean anything after what we just saw from him in 2024.
He's just going to go to Egypt again, carry off to
What's
retirement.
with this Egypt? Is that a fact?
No, that's where he went.
That's his
he
spot?
went. That's what caused this whole
His spiritual.
off-season when the whole panic started. Like, where's Aaron Rodgers?
Where
and
is he? Yeah,
the
he
unexcused
disappeared.
absence.
You think he'll just go back to the same vacation
Yeah,
spot?
I heard he's building a team out there.
Oh.
All righty. Well,
The
we wanna-
Egyptian Football
That's
League.
right. They're playing on the pyramids. We want to thank you guys very much for tuning in to episode 16 of the Best Florida Sports Podcast. Follow us on all of our social media at Best FL Sports Pod. It's going to be a big one this Sunday. We're all rooting for the Dolphins. Fins up.
Fins up. Week 17. We'll have lots to talk about no matter what happens.
That's right.
Either they're going to be we're going to be in disaster mode.
We're either, like
or
I put
preparing
on
for
like
the
I put
Buffalo
on
Bills.
Twitter the other day. We're either going to be drinking happy or we're going to be drinking our sorrows.
All right.
Good way to end it.
Best Florida Sports Podcast drops every Thursday morning. Listen on your favorite platform or watch on YouTube.